Let us pray. Almighty God, we come before you this night to ask for your blessings upon this town council, upon those gathered in this room. We ask for your Holy Spirit to be among us, to guide our deliberations, our actions, our every will, may it be to yours. Lord, we ask that you bless our state and bless our nation. We ask all of this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. He'll give you a special blessing for missing it.
I hated to walk in on that.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please stand for a pledge of allegiance. Moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan.
Here.
Ralph Miller.
Present.
Randy Niemeyer.
Present.
Greg Parker.
Here.
Richard Sharp.
Here.
Julie Rivera.
Here.
John Foreman.
Yes.
Jill Murr.
Present.
Present. David Austin.
Present. Thank you. Tonight we have a recognition, a presentation of the Certificate of Commendations for the Cedar Lake Police Department and also the Cedar Lake Fire Department. Chief Dave, Chief Todd, if you'd please take over.
Good evening. We do want to have officers as well as firefighters and paramedics recognized for their life-saving efforts on June 12, 2019 at the Lighthouse. And we're privileged and honored to have them here tonight, and we thank the council for allowing us to have this presentation. So from the police department side, we bring up Lieutenant Robert Purcell, Officer Eric Godoy, and Officer Doug Chalk.
EMT firefighter Bradley Beagle, and paramedic firefighter Amy Early.
If I might read the letter of commendation that was put together for the police department side, which would also coincide with the fire department side as well. On June 12, 2019, officers were dispatched to the Lighthouse Restaurant in regards to a patient who was in distress and believed to be choking. Upon their arrival on the scene and assessing the situation, Lieutenant Purcell, Officer Chalk, Officer Godoy began administering the Heimlich maneuver with positive results, and the food became dislodged. Further assessment revealed that the patient was unconscious and not breathing, at which time the officers initiated CPR, and this proved to be successful as well. In conjunction with the fire department and the police officers on scene, there's no doubt that patron, an elderly woman, is here today. And want to recognize our officers as well as recognize the paramedics and fire department for their efforts. Okay?
Wonderful. Nice job, guys.
This is what teamwork does. They handle lives. Police, fire, EMS.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Congratulations, ladies. Congratulations. That is wonderful. Public comment, if anybody would like to say anything regarding agenda items at this time, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Deborah Howell. I live at 18800 West 136th Avenue, Cedar Lake, Indiana.
Thank you.
And I'm here on agenda item of the Midway LLC owner Robert Trump petitioner. And the reason I'm here is because of the water drainage. There's still an issue with drainage along the front. There's a 41. And I understand it's not a Cedar Lake town problem, but if a new business is going to go in there, we need the problem fixed. The water needs to flow to the north, because what happens is it gets off our property to a certain extent and it blocks there because it doesn't flow to the north. And our property ends up getting saturated. And the sump pump never stops, and then there's a time in the spring where we ended up, the sump pump couldn't keep up with all the water.
I see.
And we had backup.
I see. So you're saying the Midway rental property is
Correct.
directly to the north of you?
Correct.
And so that person never cleaned his ditches?
Well,
Is that a
this
true
is
statement?
whatever- It is a true statement.
Okay.
The problem is that I finally got the state a few weeks back
Mhm.
to come and dig the ditch out. You know, they trenched it a little bit deeper,
Mhm.
but then they found all the blockage points along the way. And
So the culverts are blocked?
the culverts are blocked, and some of them aren't proper. They were put in, if you go along the property, there are cement entranceways, that there was a culvert. Over the years, culverts have been dropped, and it's been filled in to make that whole area accessible. It used to only have driveways in.
I see.
And now it's totally, covered, and I know their property to the north has already rectified their situation, but that still does not help when the water between us and them can't flow.
I see.
The water, last week when it rained, on Friday, the water was still over the top of the culvert, and not moving.
Mr. President, can I ask a question?
You may, please.
When you spoke with the state and they came out and dug the ditch out,
Yeah.
did they give you any idea that they were gonna be repairing any of those,
No, they're not repairing them. They said it's up to the property owners to repair them.
to repair the
They said
culverts?
To repair the culverts.
Okay.
That was not their issue.
And is that where the blockages are?
The blockages, it's in the ditch, as far as they don't go all the way through. So some of it is the culverts have collapsed, and there are cones over certain areas of it. There's other areas where they went through the actual culvert where there was cement barriers. But then there's areas in between where the culverts, you can see them, that are over the top or coming through the asphalt and not even matched. So this would be matched, they're like this, and they're not even connected. Usually when you have to put a tube in for a culvert, they're attached. If the length isn't long enough, you somehow attach them to keep the run so you can keep them from separating. But over the years, the heaving of the ground has caused the culverts to raise, and so here's the ditch and here's the culverts. It's not matching up.
So that property there where Frank's Barbecue is gonna go in,
Mhm.
it needs a culvert replaced underneath the
Oh,
park?
there's a couple, yeah.
On
They've
that
got one-
property.
They've got one that's totally collapsed and there's cones across where you can't even get onto the property. And then there's others that are raised up, and it is on their property.
And I did call INDOT, and Rick Powers, who is leaving INDOT and going to take a job in Peoria, Illinois, as their Public Works Director. But Matt, I left him a voice message. I haven't heard back from him, but I also forwarded his number to you too.
Okay, when I had talked to the state, and I had a complaint number, and, it took me 6 weeks to actually get them out there. But when they came out, and they said that there was problems in the area where there was blockage, they said that the state would identify the property owners and send them notice that it needed to be taken care of. Now, in the meantime, the property changed owners, because the prior owner was selling. And so, before everything transacted, the new owners took ownership before this process of the ditch came to be. So who they're notifying, I don't know. I don't know the process. They gave me a number to call, and if I don't have a person's name, there's no operator, and if you don't know who to talk to, it's like,
Well, I gave you Matt's
Yeah. you
name
did.
and phone
You
number.
did on Friday.
Deborah, can I ask you a question? In years past, have you ever come to the Stormwater Board and mentioned this
No,
issue
I-
to anybody?
I have mentioned it to the town. I have been here and I've talked to Jill, because part of the problem was to the south of us too, where they had sent, the town out, probably 2 years ago now. I noticed the town out there fixing something on the neighboring property. And I went over there and asked them what they were doing, and they said the postal office, was complaining that they dropped a tire because the culvert had collapsed, and that they were filling it in. And it's like, okay, that doesn't help move water, but I don't understand why the property owner wouldn't have been notified
I
of
see.
the issue instead of the town going out there and doing it. Now, I had mentioned on Friday and Saturday when I talked to a couple of you about, the ditch is not being maintained either. When you get cattails growing up in the ditch, that impedes the flow of water, it slows everything down. Well, on Monday, the town went through there, and it's still so long, but they chopped it so
I see.
it's level with the ditch now, and it still impedes the flow of water because, they left all the, droppings and stuff, but it's still a problem.
Mrs. Howe, in your mind, what would be the solution that we could reach short-term, and what would be the solution long-term?
Well, I understand that the state's supposed to come along and put a third lane in. That's not supposed to happen for another probably 2 years, because we were notified, by the, state that, there would be survey teams coming out. And, if we saw them on the property, they were gonna be surveying. And, but I can't wait. I need the culverts either put back to where they were, because I don't know if the work was done without permits, according to the state, and I don't even know how to go about finding that out. But what's there needs to be the point where the water moves. I don't care what it is. I just need that water to move north where it's supposed to go, so our ground doesn't get saturated.
Would it be a fair conclusion to reach then that you would say that the property owner or the property user needs to repair those culverts
Yes,
as the first step?
as a first step.
Okay.
Because it's come through the asphalt. So the asphalt is broken where, if anyone walks along there, you can see where the culvert has actually broken the asphalt and is coming up through the asphalt, so.
Okay.
Yeah, the culverts need to be replaced. And I don't know how they're going to do their parking lot, because at their meeting, they did not have a site plan as to, how it was all gonna lay out. But if they're gonna keep that whole area, as entryway into the property, the culverts need to be replaced.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else?
I'm gonna pass this down. I don't think it's in our packet, but this is what they presented at the BZA.
Oh, I see.
There was some discussion about, with some BZA members and plan
I didn't-
commissioners, why
today's-
there was no site plan, or
I see.
why it got a favorable with no
I didn't
site
see that
plan.
when I read it.
I see. Yeah, I think this is is it Frank's Barbecue trying to move? Yeah, just with winter coming, I'd hate to have something not be contingent or, so a man can't move forward with his, his project. But, okay, any other public comment?
Yeah, it's in our packet. This one we just got tonight. If you wanna get that back for me.
As we know, the vote is coming up tonight for the core project. And I think most of you know my feelings and how many years and millions of dollars we spent to get to this point with the core. And I'm asking the council, all of you to support it tonight so we can move forward. And you can take to the bank that I'll do my best, to continue to raise money and move this project forward to get it done. And I mean, I made that commitment when I was 38 years old to a lot of people. And it's our time. We have a chance to do this once in a lifetime, our lifetimes. And I think we need to seize it and go forward. I know that Mr. Carnahan said something last week in an open meeting that he didn't think the town of Cedar Lake should be responsible for our lake. Well, I strongly disagree with that. I think that the people of Cedar Lake, prior to being a town in the town, helped with the degradation of this lake. As an example, 2 months ago, sewage flowing into my property into the lake. We've been responsible for it, and we have to work as, you know, a town to correct this and make it the natural resource that we've been, you know, striving for years.
You bet. No, I think you're right, Mr. Gross. I think it rekindles a whole new piece of motivation, and it energizes the entire communities, not just ours, but South County.
I'm very emotional about this because
You bet.
I've worked so hard to do this. And to have, after numerous councils signing, that they intended to move forward with this, and then we get it, and now we're like, well, it's not.
Sure.
You know, we need to make that decision and move forward. Like I said, I'll do my best to help.
You
Okay?
bet. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
everybody.
Would anybody else like to make any comments regarding agenda items? With no hands going up or people standing up, we will move forward with the agenda. Thank you. Consent agenda, minutes of August 6, 2019. Claims, all town funds, $144,655.55. Wastewater operating, $145,221.71. Water utility, $33,768. Stormwater, $10,557.60. 2017 RDA construction, $50.50. Payroll, August 8th, 2019, $243,879.37. Manual journal entries from July 1 to 30th, 2019. Item 4, Clubhouse Cub Scouts, August 22nd, 2019 through May 14th, 2020. Girl Scout Troop 30471, September 10th, 2019 through May 12th, 2020. Use request as well from St. John Evangelist Oktoberfest. And item number 6, Lake County Board of Elections, Election Day request for using the facility on November 5th, 2019. Do we have a motion to accept and waive the reading of the minutes and accept the consent agenda as listed?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Ralph,
I'll second.
second by Julie. Any questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan.
Yes.
Greg Parker.
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer.
Yes.
Richard Sharp.
Yes.
Julie Rivera.
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 7-0, thank you. Moving into BZA items, David Carey, owner, and Deborah Campbell, petitioner, 13530 Morris Street, use variance. Jill, would you explain this, please?
Mr. President, it's in the middle of your packet. The BZA sent a certified a favorable recommendation to the town council for the requested use variance to allow the petitioner, Deborah Campbell, to operate Copperleaf Organics LLC for the retail sales of CBD products only, no paraphernalia or tobacco-like products. The favorable recommendation certified hereby is based upon the findings from the presentation by the petitioner that such use will not be injurious to people's health and welfare, and that the use of the area and adjacent property will not be affected in an adverse manner. This certification was made by a vote of 5 in favor and 0 against. Upon a motion duly made and seconded at the conclusion of the public hearing held on August 8th, 2019.
Thank you.
I would like to ask Deborah to come up, and I had no clue what any of this stuff was about, and kind of explain to us what you're doing. I had to pull Jill off to the side and ask her, what is that stuff?
Okay, hi, I'm Deborah Campbell, and I'd be happy to explain to the best that I can for you. So, do you know what CBD is?
Don't use an acronym, just what is that called?
Okay, CBD is what a lot of people are using now in place of prescription pain medications. It's, I don't know how deep you want me to go, because I'm pretty educated.
What do those letters stand for?
Cannabidiol. What it is it's one of the molecules in the hemp plant, and there is nothing in any of our products that people get confused all the time. You have marijuana plants, and you get high from that. Ours are hemp. You don't. It's just straight cut and dry. You don't get high from it. It's more for a medicinal purpose. We have, Copperleaf Organics is a very premium, high-end company, and we have several surgeons and doctors in Northwest Indiana that carry our products. The Crown Point Animal Hospital carries all of our pet products. And what we want to do here is bring a, how do I put it, a trustworthy company to Cedar Lake. Not where you're buying it, and I don't want to say anything about anybody, but in a maybe not so desirable place, and you don't know what you're getting. We have lab reports. We're with the largest manufacturer in the world out of Colorado. All of our plants are organically grown. We have special processes that are done through an FDA-approved facility that provides all of our products for us. So we are also, one thing that we pride our company on is we're THC-free. So what that means is THC is what gets you high. Well, there's a legal limit of 0.03% that you can have in any of the CBD products. However, I've chosen at this time to go with a company that is THC-free. Now, not all companies can claim that. The manufacturer I've chosen, again, Premium, is the only manufacturer in the state of Colorado that got a state certificate of free sale, meaning we can claim free of THC. So that's the route I chose to go. We have all premium products, but we also we have an educational area, a table set up with 10 chairs that public can come sit down, talk, learn about every one of the products and how it may benefit them. People with, I can't make any claims because, you know, that's just not in the rule book. But for myself, I'll just spit it out there. I've had 5 lung collapses. I have Chiari malformation, where my brain pushes down on my spinal cord. I have lupus, Sjogren's, and Raynaud's. And that is why I started because I've searched many, many years for alternative ways of feeling okay in my own skin. And this is the only thing that worked for me. There's no side effects that we know of to date, and there's no addictive properties. So I've avoided medications as best that I could for my life, even to the point I did get steroid injections. I don't get them anymore. All I take is my products, and there's nothing in it that's harmful, and they're doing it everywhere, but everywhere doesn't mean it's always the highest quality. And we went with the highest quality because I take it every day. I did it for me. I'm not selling for another company. I own Copperleaf Organics. I'm the sole proprietor here, and that's my brand, and so I chose to go
Super.
to the top.
Thank you.
Thank you for the explanation.
Appreciate that.
And I just figured if anyone up here didn't know about that stuff, you got a little lesson on it, and maybe the audience.
I give it to my dog. My dog's got really kind of runny eyes, and since we started giving him the CBD oil, it's gone. Yeah, it's gone.
And then I thought it might be good for you too, Randy, because she said she used it for lupus.
I have Crohn's,
Oh, Crohn's, okay.
but it's been in remission for years, so.
I've got a question,
Yes.
and it's just the only question because it's gonna come up, I know someone's gonna ask me, was there a site plan presented for this item? Because I don't have that here. Was
Well-
anybody there?
I was there, I didn't see.
Did you see the pictures in the
I
packet,
see
Greg?
the pictures, but that's not a site plan, I'm just asking about the site plan.
It's an
Mr. Austin, were you
it's an
there?
established business with parking, and in my opinion, I don't think there'll be a problem with it.
You don't think it needs a site plan?
Not from what I see from the property, I don't think
Are you
she's
making
gonna-
any major changes to the outside, to the parking lot?
All right.
Dave, what's your opinion on the lack of site plan?
Uniformly, we should require a site plan, but the BZA considered that for sure in their dialogue the other night, and the certification action was based upon the record that was made. So, going forward, and perhaps otherwise, that might occur, and probably should occur in business properties, but it was discussed the other night. You get it, and you've gotten it tonight, exactly what the BZA got.
The concern that has been posed that every business is not getting potentially treated the same.
That's
When-
another problem.
When some are approved without the requirements and others come in and have to meet every requirement. In fairness, I was asked to bring it up, I'm bringing it up. And I just think that everybody should be treated fairly,
Thank you.
but no matter what it is.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Yes, Mr. Kubiak.
I guess I don't know where you're going with that, but, I mean, this is an existing, there is an existing site here. There's been a business in operation here for the last 8 years.
I understand, but
I
it
mean,
was,
there's an existing parking lot, there's an existing.
it's not the same,
entrance.
it's not the same business though, Tim, it's a different business. I mean, I'm sure it fits the zoning use,
I
but
mean, there's an existing site there that's improved parking. There's striped parking, there's, you know, there's everything that's existing. So I guess I'm just going off by the site plan requirements. I mean, on a site where somebody is completely changing use or there's not adequate facilities to operate the business, it's a different situation. But I mean, this is, they got a few customers coming into a building, they got adequate parking spot, they got a handicap parking spot. They have all of this, they meet all the requirements.
Tim, I don't have any issues with it. I was just told that certain businesses, proposed businesses have to, certain requirements and others don't, and
Everybody shows us a parking plan of how they plan on utilizing their business, you know, what shows existing, and, I mean, a lot of these existing buildings that are here that are coming in to operate a business are all, I mean, on the same playing field as far as, you know, we have to look at what is there, what their use is intended, and if they have adequate means of operating that business on that site.
I've made that argument myself over the past 12 years, Tim, on businesses that have antiquated uses or whatever, that there should be a use for every building. All I'm questioning is because the question was posed to me for this item and another one, is where was the site plan? Just so there was something, some sort of requirement fulfillment for the site plan.
And I guess I'm just at a loss of understanding why every business needs a site plan. An engineered site plan you're asking for, or? I mean, you have a picture of.
I understand. I don't have an overhead view, and evidently the BZA didn't either, of how it lays out, yes, and what the parking is gonna be used for, and the amount of traffic that's gonna be there. You know, just a brief explanation. I'm not, again, I'm not,
Again, I don't know.
I'm asking the question because I was asked to ask the question.
And I guess I don't know why you don't have that. That should be in there. I agree.
Thank you.
Showing the existing parking. I didn't realize we had anything.
We got a picture, that's
We
what we
got
got.
pictures of it all.
It just talks about the parking.
The ones that were presented at the BZA.
Well, no, that was the barbecue.
Oh, we got pictures in
Yeah, yeah.
here.
That's all it is photos.
There should be something showing their parking like you said.
Yeah, it's in here. There's 4 different pictures.
There's not an overhead picture of anything though, Bob.
So if there's no change in use, Tim, it's your opinion that since there's no change in use, no change in parking, no change in the whole plan, that it shouldn't need a site plan?
Well, I'm not saying change in use, I'm not saying, there's a change of use, but, I mean, just because there's a change of business, if there's adequate parking for, I mean, obviously, they needed a variance for this because it's zone B1 and their use was a B2 use, so. But other than that, I mean, their use has conforming, it's existing, there's parking there. So, as far as a site plan is an engineered plan that is developed by an engineer to show exact drainage, parking, everything.
So when Anton Agency owned that property, did they submit a site plan?
Yeah, there is a site plan for that property.
So that's the site plan that we're going off of for the new business?
What's there is that met the guidelines
And keep in mind, the only reason they went to the BZA is because it was Zone B1 and that type of product needed to be in a B2, so they're asking for special use. Had it been a B2 presently, then they would never went to the BZA. They would just open up shop and we would not know anything. That's what happens in our community everywhere because of how we're established and set up. Okay, anybody else? Okay, we discussed that. Do we have any favorable or unfavorable recommendation for this item?
John's decision.
Action.
By your council.
I make a motion to approve the use variance.
Thank you, Julie. We have a motion from Julie.
Based on the finding of facts from the BZA.
Yes, based on the BZA's recommendation.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Julie and a second by Bob. Roll call when you are done writing, Jen?
Robert Carnahan.
Yes.
Greg Parker.
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer.
Yes.
Richard Sharp.
Yes.
Julie Rivera.
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Good luck with your business endeavor.
Thank you. Come visit.
Item number 2, Midway LLC owner and Robert Schrum petitioner, 13106 Wicker Avenue. Again, we have a use variance. We talked about it in the public comment, but Jill, if you would please fill us in.
Mr. President, the Board of Zoning Appeals certified a favorable recommendation to the Town Council for the requested use variance to allow the petitioner, Robert Schrum, to operate Frank's Barbecue with outdoor dining and cooking on the following conditions, namely, 1, 2 outdoor entertainment events per month in accordance with the town noise regulation ordinance, a maximum of 21 picnic tables, a minimum of 20 parking spaces. The hours of operation shall be Wednesday through Sunday of each week, 9 a.m. to midnight, including holidays. And significant stormwater issues are to be addressed as required by the town engineering consultants under town stormwater regulations. The favorable recommendation certified hereby is based upon the findings from the presentation by the petitioner that the use variance does not offer significance or variation to the master plan of the town, will not be injurious to the general welfare, safety, and morals of the community, and that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in this variance will not be substantially affected in an adverse manner. This certification is made by a vote of 4 in favor and 1 against upon a motion duly made and seconded at the conclusion of the public hearing held on August 8th, 2019, and your petitioners are in the audience.
Okay, thank you.
Can we have the petitioners come up?
Would the petitioners like to make a few comments? If you'd like, you're more than welcome. Or answer any questions if anybody has any. Does anyone have questions?
I have one off the top where Deb Howe said that the culvert out in front of the place is collapsed in spots. Could you get that replaced?
Well, we talked to NDOT, and they did clear it, but if there's issues, and we did talk to them too, we're gonna do everything we can to fix it. Now, the thing that we did talk with the zoning board too was they are widening the road and they are gonna adjust it. So if we fix all kinds of stuff and put new concrete over it or blacktop, they're gonna tear it up, and it's almost like wasted money, which they agreed with. So we're gonna do everything we can to fix so that it flows, it doesn't overflow. That's,
Well, like Deb Howe commented, that's 3 years down the road.
Well, there may be a
2022, and she's concerned about her property getting flooded, so.
and same with ours. We don't want
Yeah.
ours flooded either, so we're gonna address it every way we can.
Hey, Tim, do companies like Borit ever unclog those types of?
If it's collapsed and broken, such as this house, then it's gotta be replaced.
I see. Thank you.
NDOT did board.
Yeah, and
NDOT did Borit?
Yeah, they made it all the way.
Oh, okay.
I would back up what Bob says. I think it's important, even if there is a project, to take care of that issue that's there now. It's fair to your neighbors, it's fair to the business owner there too, to make sure that stuff is taken care of, at least the part that you control.
Yep.
So that I think is a good statement, Bob, and it's fair.
I have the same question on this item from the same party. Was there a site plan submitted for this item? And is that
Again,
just,
now, I guess,
are you concur?
I guess it's more that there's some confusion between me and whoever's asking these questions, is that, in my eyes, until they come to the BZA and find what, if and they can use this property, they're asking for a variance to do what he wants to do on this property. Obviously, there's some parking requirements, some ingress egress requirements that need to be addressed, so with this permit process to make these improvements, there's gonna have to be a site plan. But to get a site plan prepared prior to knowing if you could utilize the property, just seems, I mean, we'll never, ever reuse a building in town again if you wanna start having all this information prior to, you know, it's kinda, you gotta take the first step. I mean, he needs to know that he can operate his business here prior to, you know, we know that they need to meet the parking requirements.
So this approval is just for the use?
Exactly. It's for
Okay.
And-
So there still has to be a site plan presented?
He has to make some parking improvements and ingress egress, yes.
Okay.
He's gonna have to have that. And again, I know the picture he turned in was kind of a concept of, that's what he is wanting this place to look like when he gets done.
Fair enough, Tim, that's an answer. That's what I'm looking for, is an answer.
That's kind of how I was assuming.
Makes sense.
the property.
Mr. Austin, do you concur with that?
No, I have an entirely different view of planning and use variances than your director of operations does. I don't think you shoot and then aim. I think you aim and then you shoot. And part of the reason for having a site plan is if this is a substantial business and these folks really mean to do what they say they're gonna do, they're coming in prepared with the data, the documents, the information that allows permitting to occur and a full assessment to happen in the public hearing. That's what I think on this and the last one.
So if I'm reading this right, it seems like, is there a lack of communication with petitioners of what the process is? I mean, is there like, is there kind of a playbook that people follow? Because it seems like there's just a lot of confusion with this. You interpret it one way, the legal interprets it another way, some plan commissioners interpret it a certain way. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of confusion.
I guess I'm misinterpreting it, and again, I guess I'm wrong, obviously, if Mr. Austin doesn't interpret that way. But to me, if you come in and want to use a piece of property for a certain use, and I say you need to go to an engineer, get a site plan and all these things of what you need prior to us even telling you that you could use your property for this business, they're gonna say, I'll head down up to Cherville or I'll head down to Lowell. But if you don't know any, I mean, I guess with this approval tonight, in my eyes, is you're saying that Frank's Barbecue can have a special use to do what he wants to do on this property. Again, he still has to get an occupancy and meet his parking requirements and those other things as his next step. I mean, this is hurdle number one. He's not
Right.
just opening up tomorrow. Especially, I mean, in the last instance, the parking is there, they need an occupancy permit, a fire department permit, they check off on their things and they got their parking and stuff and they're good, but these guys still have to meet, they gotta get adequate parking for their 21 picnic tables and the things that they were granted at the BZA.
Fair.
Rob and Patty, you guys have done an outstanding job with your business. You guys came here quite a few years ago when you wanted to sell some stuff along the roadside there, and we gave you a bit of a hard time on that. And, but you persevered and opened up your shop there, and your reputation's just impeccable. People come from all around for your barbecue, so congratulations on a great product and an awesome business.
Yep, I would
And
concur with that.
they came here and wanted to set up next to the town club, and I said, we got brick and mortars paying taxes, and you're not gonna be paying taxes. And they told me, we're gonna open a brick and mortar, and I thank them for doing that.
You followed your dream, man. It's just awesome.
That's all good.
It's amazing.
And I'm not trying to deter anybody from starting a business. However, I am trying to clear up some confusion, get some answers, and by the questions that I've asked, not only have we not cleared up any confusion, we've probably created some more.
Okay.
Which happens a lot
put.
around here.
Yes, Mr.
We're
Austin.
learning also, so
Which-
we've never really done this before, and here we go.
Yes, sir.
There is a review in process about internal procedures related to applications and documentation and processing.
That's correct.
That process has started.
And that's what I was getting to, is, it seems like there's a lot of confusion with this stuff.
Use variance is a law item. It's in your code. It is law. It has certain requirements for it. Your BZA's asked a lot of questions. They sat in a meeting here Thursday night a week ago until midnight, working with 9 or 10 different petitions that were presented before them. Our community is changing. It's transitioning. There's more business, there's quality business, there's interest in business. And the process is changing also as a consequence of that. And we're working on it. Internally, we're working on it.
That's good.
And if you've got an empty building that isn't being occupied, and they feel they're being strung down the road, as Tim said, they may go to Sherrville or Lowell, and if those buildings become unoccupied after 6 months, we lose tax dollars.
Bob, you know who always wins? The most prepared person in the room. If these folks come in and they're prepared and they lay it out, they're gonna be in their building and they're gonna be doing their business. Nobody who's ever shown up in that fashion here, and you go to every meeting I go to, has ever been denied.
I think Dave said a good thing, though. We do have a lot of procedural things to really clear up here.
And that's why we had that meeting
There's
a
a lot
couple
of
weeks
darn
ago
confusion.
regarding that
That's
subject.
when it started.
That's right.
There's just a lot of confusion, and in fairness to Rob and Patty, they're doing the best they can with the confusing situation that we have here. But hopefully, we can get some clarity at some point soon, so we have a roadmap to follow.
All I'm saying is there shouldn't be all this confusion, and there shouldn't be the feeling of, well, because it's this, I can't do this, and the next person, it's perceived, well, because.
I think we've left too much up to interpretation for so long.
Maybe so, but, I mean, if people, there's a lot of things that folks feel that way about around here. There's 2 sets of rules in a lot of cases, and if that's what the perception is, that's what the reality will be for some folks.
I don't disagree with you, Greg.
But again, if a business is zoned what it is, a business can go out of business and a new one can move in without even coming to the
I'm not
BZA.
disagreeing with that either.
Yeah, so
John.
that's always blows me away as well.
Not necessarily. Depends on the use.
Correct, it's all about the use.
It's all about the use.
100%.
Sometimes I hate
100%.
government.
I do have a question, different question. Someone was concerned about the 2 entertainment events per month. What is that gonna consist of? Are there bands? Is there,
Live music.
okay,
Basically like what Bugaboos does, wintertime, we like to have, even in the summertime, indoor music. Maybe some other events outside.
okay.
What hours might that entertainment be? What hours of your operation would there be that entertainment?
Same as the noise ordinance.
Yeah, we'll follow.
It'll follow, so we're not asking for anything extra other than what the noise ordinance.
I think Jill read that, didn't you, Jill?
That's in part of their certification, is.
I guess what I'm
they-
getting to is when Mike is doing business with a client, your neighbor, at noon, he's not gonna have a concert in his window.
No, that'll.
So
Okay.
evening,
It'll all be evening, yeah. absolutely.
Okay. That's all I was wondering. We all gotta be good neighbors and live with each other.
Okay, good
Yep.
question, Julie. Anybody else with any other questions? Okay,
number 5, significant stormwater issues that are to be addressed as required by the town engineering consultants under town stormwater regulations. Who's going to oversee that? That's just,
Town engineer.
town engineer.
And
okay.
and we'll,
then
And
they would
that'll
get
be
with
part
the
of their
property
parking.
owners.
And their use.
so
that
that'll
Tim
be a
had
part of their
discussed.
parking plan, but what about the issue that was brought up
It's the
tonight? Is there
stormwater
going to be
regulations.
some oversight of making sure that those culverts are corrected in the meantime?
We can.
That would be dependent on the person taking action, making a motion, adding it as a contingency or not.
You can add or delete conditions. if
That's correct.
Appropriate, you're the decision-making body.
But they already do mention it in the BZA approval, so.
It's very vague.
That it is.
That's what I
Yeah,
was saying.
that's not real specific.
What exactly does that mean?
Yes, go ahead, Eric.
In the approval, and we didn't get a direct answer when we asked. They said they didn't want us open Monday and Tuesday. And we didn't understand that. Currently, he's not open Monday or Tuesday. 'cause
What
they-
does that have to do with?
That is not what was said. What was said was, when asked about the hours, colleague here said he doesn't want to be open on Mondays and Tuesdays because he stages and, you know, you kind of
Sure.
explained your business practice.
Correct. But we didn't want to limit it if he does want to be open on Monday or Tuesday, so he doesn't have to come back.
I would-
That was the question that was posed.
That's how I
Unless
read
there's
the
something
minutes
on
that I
this.
was there. That's what I heard and what I saw in the minutes that I reviewed.
Again, more
So,
confusion.
yeah, if you make a motion, make it Monday through Sunday. Who cares?
So Rob and Patty, tell us, what is your future plan there then?
Or Sunday through Sunday.
As far as
7
being
days a week,
open,
make it
how many
7.
days a week?
We need to grow. We're in a very small space. We need more space. We need to offer indoor dining.
Just
We'd like
like
to
we
offer
have-
the outdoor dining, obviously.
Just like we have done already, we have slowly increased our hours, and those were, we changed them as we went.
You bet.
He quit his full-time job only a year ago, so we did both, he did both.
You bet.
For a year and a half, so when he quit his full-time job and was able to be there more, that's when we increased our hours. Now, in the future, we plan on, he's one pit master, and if you guys understand barbecue, you cannot relinquish that control to just anyone. So in the process of us training somebody in the, you know, from now until maybe a year or so, because it might take that long,
Sure.
then we may want to be open more, because we might need to be open more to bring more revenue in.
Makes sense.
Cover our costs.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. If anyone were to make a motion, it makes sense that you treat them like you would Bugaboos, you know, Latitude 41 or Giordano's or any of the other places on 41. It's just a restaurant.
Yeah, every restaurant
Yeah.
has the
If
option
they
to be
wanna
open
be
7
closed,
days
they
a week
can.
if they want. yeah.
That's right. That's only fair.
I got to sleep.
That's right.
What?
We may, you know, we may schedule weeks.
Come on,
off
you're a
in the
pit
winter,
master.
take a family vacation kind of thing, so
You bet.
hours are always gonna be kind of not up in the air, but they'll gradually change, but they won't change drastically, you know.
You bet. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for the petitioner? Would anybody like to take action on
Mr.
this item?
President, I'll
with-
make a motion on this item for approval of the use variance with the conditions cited, subtracting the Wednesday through Sunday provision on number 4, and including the repair and replacement of the culverts that may be breached,
Okay,
as well as all findings of fact by the Board of Zoning Appeals.
very fine. We have a motion. Does anyone care to second Randy's motion with the contingencies?
I'll second.
Motion by Randy, second by Julie. Roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan.
Yes.
Greg Parker.
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer.
Yes.
Richard Sharp.
Yes.
Julie Rivera.
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes. Motion carries 7-0.
Can't wait to see what you guys do. You've done
Good luck to
amazing
you.
so far.
Keep it up.
Awesome.
Okay, moving into the next item, United States Army Corps of Engineer Design Agreement. This item was deferred from August 6th, 2019 meeting. Jill, would you like to add any items or make any mention? I actually would like to make a couple of statements, so if you'd like me to go first, I can, or, okay. As the ladies and gentlemen in the public know, you know, back, I wrote a letter to my fellow councilman in 2016, January 30th. I believe everybody up here except for Rick perhaps was a council person at that time. Anyway, you know, for many years, people supporting cleaning up the lake, and a lot of our work has been completed over the years. While this project's been ongoing for years, keep in mind we've initiated the last big delay on our own. Remember that the original plan was only for alum treatment in the entire lake and removing only about a foot from the south lobe. Our wish as a council was then called the LPP, or Locally Preferred Plan. After taking the steps back in terms of years by doing this, we finally got the engineers reviewing the project and agreed to give in and go with our assessment that possibly being able to do 2 lobes makes the lake makes more sense, doing the south and the center. To keep the momentum, a year after that 2016 email, we took a van, or maybe it was a year before, we took a van, myself, I think Bob Carnahan, did you go up there? Ralph, were you a part of that?
Army Corps in a large van with our head of our chamber, Diane Justice, the CLIA representative, Bob Gross, Indiana State Rep, Michael Aylesworth, as well as State Senator, Rick Niemeyer. Many of us on the council, were behind that. Our intent was to show commitment, and we succeeded. During this meeting with the Colonel, it was stressed that we need this project completed by them, and that only them would be successful in doing such a terrible eco project. And then we'd have some options once the plan was approved. While it was not exactly spelled out in those exact words, the reading between the lines, it was essentially apparent from our meeting. At that time, you may recall the CDATE money was being led by our county, and many of the people wanted a lot of that money, up to a third, to be used for this train coming south. And instead, many of us wanted to have that put into a fund and support the lake. And we created a legal setup to do this, but we never really had the money to put a lot of it in the past, due to the fact that the council's favor at the time was, hey, let's really fix some of these subdivisions that also are contributing to the overflow of yard drains, et cetera, into the lake. So we did recently the subdivision up on top of the hill by MacArthur, where Bob Carnahan lives, and we also took care of South Shore subdivision as the most two recent projects that we bonded for. Then a few months after that, or prior to this letter, Jill and I went out to Washington, D.C., and we had a meeting with the gentleman, Mr. Tad Brown. It was a late Thursday afternoon, and at that moment in time, there was somewhat of a nod that this probably won't move forward. After some serious discussion and pleading and discussion some more, we found out a day or so later that our project was approved. The certification, this is design agreement that we're trying to vote on tonight, is not necessarily for the locally preferred plan. It's a design agreement to enter into. Jill is going to then bring up some comments in regards to discussions she's had in the last couple of days, but we can always, at a later date, opt out of having them design it, or opt out of the locally preferred plan and just go with the normal plan that was dubbed the NER plan initially, which, regardless, the town has some cost-sharing agreements as a part of this. So, I believe we as a town, we as a community, need to look to hire a marketing company, start doing some marketing, and sell this concept, sell this idea, get people involved. We have a lot of small homes around here that values can either go up or they can go down. In the next 20 years, it's just that simple. And whether anyone wants to admit it or not, it's the fact of the matter, based upon where we're at in the Chicago market, in the Chicago area.
John, can I interrupt you for a second?
No,
You
not
said-
until I'm finished, sir. So after marketing, maybe there's some referendums or things like that, but I think that we could go out and get some money from additional grants, pursue state, local, private grants, et cetera. So in closing, I had made mention, never been able to do any of this, and we weren't allowed to talk about this project for such a long time publicly because it was not approved by the Corps. So in April, it was, the feasibility, that is. But the truth is, all the real hard work is about to begin. And Sue, thank you for coming up tonight and offering the advice that you did on what we would be able to do, if need be, to utilize some of the funding. So Jill, if you'd like to add anything else, I would certainly appreciate that, or and then yield the floor to Mr. Parker after you're complete.
Council, it was the same as noted at your previous meeting, that any favorable approval should have some contingencies, one of them being approving and executing the design agreement contingent upon a memorandum of agreement being signed concurrently with the Corps. So one of the things is adding that concurrently with the design agreement, documenting the town and Chicago's district understandings to provide more transparency on the costs. Further reiterating what the design agreement indicates for how the district would request any cash contributions needed from the town, and how the district would spend its 65% of the design costs, and that the town would retain a consultant for design and direct the town attorney to prepare a reimbursement resolution for the ecosystem restoration, feasibility, and design costs for any future recapture on financing.
Okay. And did you have any discussions with the Corps in the past 2 weeks?
And that was one of them, is running that memorandum of agreement currently.
I see.
Not completely executing the design agreement with a favorable recommendation, but the memorandum of agreement being concurrent.
You betcha. Okay, thank you very much, Jill. Mr. Parker, if you'd like to make a comment?
Yeah, when you read that, you made it sound like that we could sign a contract with this design group and then opt out of it. I don't,
We can.
are you sure about that?
Jill, what was the most recent comment from Ahmad? He initially had made mention to us that we would have to enter into the design agreement as it is and then make changes after that design agreement is signed to kick the project off. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
Okay.
The design agreement would need to be entered into, again, the memorandum of agreement running concurrently with the signing of the design agreement.
Okay.
Mr.
And
Austin,
those items
do you concur with
included in
that?
there.
Okay.
That you have a contract and then you can just opt out of it?
No.
No, we're not going to opt out. We're going to have a memorandum of understanding to be able to do the engineering with our own consultants as opposed to utilizing the Corps' design consultants. But they have also reiterated to Jill in the past couple of days that that particular, the design engineering portion of the Corps is nothing at all like the feasibility side because it's all operated here in Chicago. But of course, none of us up here have that warm fuzzy, right? Because of the fact that it took 15 years to do the feasibility report when their mission is 3 years. So that was kind of our reasoning for the memorandum of understanding.
Forgive me, I'm not warm and fuzzy about the government or any government entity. That's not ever changed since I've been here.
You bet.
But I asked Mr. Austin a question about the contract. I just want an answer.
The entry into a contract with Core is the result of a meeting of the minds. Everybody agrees. An amendment to that agreement is likewise an agreement that would require a meeting of the minds, both parties to agree. So once you do the first contract, you have a contract. You're bound by its terms and conditions because you met, your minds met, you agree. If there are changes to occur and one of the parties doesn't agree, then you don't have an amendment. You only have an agreement that is not amended. So,
So therefore, some of the contingencies that were discussed being rolled into a memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding are or are not allowed.
I don't know.
Because just looking at this contract, John, Article 4, termination or suspension, item D says any suspension or termination shall not relieve the parties of liability for any obligation previously incurred. Any delinquent payment owed by the non-federal sponsor pursuant to this agreement shall be charged interest at a rate to be determined by the Secretary of Treasury equal to 150 per centum of the average bond equivalent rate of the 13-week Treasury bills auctioned immediately prior to blah, blah, blah. So it looks to me like while a memorandum of understanding is great, like what Dave was saying, is if they don't agree on our language, we're still stuck with this.
But if the motion is made to make it contingent upon an MOU, wouldn't that supersede?
But this is a federal contract. I don't know if we can supersede a federal contract.
I would suspect not. Federal law preempts state law preempts local law, town law, just by the supremacy and priority sequencing of things, so.
I understand.
There's a whole lot of ifs there is all I'm saying. That's what I'm pointing out.
And I had told the council, when I was told we can't go out in public and say anything negative, that I had to keep my mouth shut until we had a plan proposed. And in the background, I had told the council that I would like not to take this federal plan because I honestly believe, talking with our state legislators, that we could do it a lot cheaper if we did it in the state and not deal with the Army Corps.
Mr. Carnahan, you were here when Mr. Visklowski was present prior to me ever being a council person, and at that time, the reason for doing it with the Army Corps of Engineers is so that way we could possibly go after this grant of nearly $12 million, of which Mr. Colonel Reisinger is planning to present that in the 2020 budget. So I just remind everybody up here that that particular next step is in front of us, and perhaps our contingencies on a motion to enter into this design agreement won't be valid, but there's a good opportunity that this $12 million could get approved in 2020 according to Mr. Reisinger, so it's a possibility. So I think,
I've got a lot of people telling me it can be done a lot cheaper than that.
where are they going to get the $12 million from the federal government?
No, I don't think they need that because, Randy, didn't you say something about?
Yeah, there's a lot of technology out there, and Texas A&M has done a number of the projects where they've cleaned lakes for a fraction of it, $2 million, $3 million in that neighborhood. So, I mean, there are options out there. I understand what John's saying. I understand what Bob Gross said earlier. The passion and about this project is great, but I think it's something that when you're leveraging up to $1.6 million of public funds for a project with a lot of ifs right now and a lot of promises, it deserves to be vetted.
Fair.
And
Mr.
that's
Austin-
what we're doing here.
Which is
vetting it.
why I made the
Mr.
motion.
Niemeyer,
to
we
defer
have
so
entered
could
into a
vet it.
federal contract with Army Corps with the Utopia project. Am I correct?
Yeah.
What was that, a $1 million deal?
I was not here during.
You weren't a part of that?
It was more than that.
It was more than $1 million.
2 million.
And did we strike anything from that particular contract? Were we afraid? Were we worried?
We had a revenue source to pay for it.
Absolutely.
Our portion. We don't have an identified revenue source other than wastewater funds.
Right.
For this, which wastewater funds are designated to infrastructure.
We have over $10 million in wastewater funds. We do need some infrastructure, for infrastructure. However, due to the fact that we had no wastewater prior to us being a town, and then since we were a town early on, that's the degradation of the lake. So it makes logical sense that we earmark some of that towards this project. Thus, the reason we had Sue come in today. So I think, though, the real question here is we've entered into contracts with the Army Corps of Engineers in the past. We didn't strike anything. We moved forward with it. It was a little more than $1 million, but maybe not quite 2. I can't remember what the dollar number was for the Utopia project. It was a super job, and CLIA also on that project did some bank stabilization and things like that. And CLIA does have $200,000 nearly that would go towards this. So entering into this, those dollars would be less if we went back to the locally preferred. Not going with the locally preferred plan, but rather the NER plan. So keeping the ball moving down the field is the name of the game. We got the feasibility report back in April. Here we are in the end of August. I do hope that everybody read the feasibility report because it was 15 years in the making, and it was entered into prior to
Mr.
the
President,
agreement.
I don't
Yes, sir.
think, with all due respect to everybody that has a stake in this, I don't think there's anybody sitting here
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't support getting the lake cleaned at some point.
Sure.
I can't.
The time is now,
personally.
Mr. Parker. Time is now, sir.
I can't personally, in good conscience, commit $1.6 million in a contract to a design team, not knowing whether this is ever going to get funded, using money that was never intended for this purpose.
$2.2 million of fish, clean water. It's a no-brainer. Fishing, eating the fish, killing all the suckers that are on the bottom of our lake, stirring up the algae blooms. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. It's black and white. It's that simple. If we move forward with this project, if there's a will, there's a way. There's state grants, there's funding, there's opportunities for people to partake. NIPSCO, BP, they're all in our backyard. All their employees live in South Lake
Can
County.
they help us out with the
South Lake
$1.6
County,
million?
RDA has never spent any money in South Lake County. We have an opportunity here. It's in front of us. Clean lake.
John,
Fish. See your feet when you're staying in water.
Mr.
It's the big
President,
green one. It's
If
disgusting.
I may, I was in this room in 1998. This room was packed
Yes, sir.
when that sewer fee got raised to fund infrastructure improvements.
Yes, sir.
For the sewer utility in this town. Not one time in that meeting, and I'm sure that you can concur, because I know you were there, Mr. Austin, you were there. Did I hear anybody say in that meeting, in that room,
I wasn't on the council
that
then.
fund would be used for eco restoration?
We may not need it. We may have somebody who steps up and writes a check. We don't know. But one thing we do know is if we don't commit to this design
One
agreement,
thing I do know, though, is that commitment was made in 1998, and if that fund is not handled responsibly, and the right things done with it, then you're gonna be going back to the taxpayers and the ratepayers and asking for a rate increase to fund the things that the town needs for infrastructure.
I respectfully disagree with that, but that could be your opinion.
If there's $1.6 million gone out of that fund, where's that, what replenishes that $1.6 million?
The lack of sewers is what caused the degradation of our lake. It's directly connected, sir. That's the fact of the matter. Go look at the lake.
I think that's, I think that's iffy at best. And really, when I asked to defer this,
Sure.
to let it live another day, I was hoping that there would be another funding source pursued, or something from the state, or something from Senator Niemeyer, something.
Mr. Niemeyer and I and Mr. Gross had a meeting. And in that meeting, he said, once we get to the design agreement, he will go downstate, he will champion this project. He will also work with the RDA, help to try to make something happen in the South Lake County area. So those are the things that we have, and that's the next step. This has been we've been doing this for a long time, and each milestone, each hurdle, meeting with the colonel in Chicago, taking the whole, renting the van, going up there, buying the $2 million worth of property south on Parrish Avenue, doing all the bank stabilizations, all the catch basins in our community, fixing all the tributaries that feed this lake. It's a natural lake. It's owned by the state. We're not allowed to touch the bottom without the Corps' permission, and getting this 11.8 million or whatever that exact number is through Mr. Visklowski, if it's appropriated. That would be huge. The next hurdle. This is not going to be easy. As I mentioned in my June 30th, 2016 email, it's not going to be easy. But if there's a will, there's a way. That's how you have to think, positive, optimistically. Yes, Joe?
Additionally, I had reached out to Lake and River Enhancement, Rod Edgell. We had gotten the layer grant for the town club ditch. There is layer money available for the design agreement as long as we make a commitment. It's $100,000 annually you can apply for. There is some matching with that, so matching could be provided with whatever other funds we would have available. Some of those funds could be in-house, could be the design engineering costs that we pay for. Additionally, looking at our CEDAT funds was one of the things that Jennifer, Sue, and I had discussions on back in, I believe it was 2016. You guys adopted Ordinance 1216, which $15,000 was put into a non-reverting fund for ecosystem projects. There are other funding sources that would need to be analyzed.
You bet.
Commitments from the community, from the council to pursue the project, what our commitment level would be. If this wouldn't come to fruition with obtaining the federal funding for construction, do you stop design then with the federal government, with the Army Corps?
Sure.
There's those avenues. One of the things in me having discussions with Sue and some of the history that I didn't have was over the years, the initial process of feasibility and the design agreement. So the development of these preliminary engineering and design agreements was that a portion of that was going to be paid from the sewer utility for those surcharges that have affected the lake. And getting that history from the professionals who have been here before I was part of the analysis. Yes, there is further analysis that is needed. Not all the funds have to be paid up front.
Bet. And I
but
think
at this time,
I think the next step then would be that we move forward with this. We get a grant writer hired who is professional and knows how to go after these grants. That's the next logical step. Marketing firm, perhaps, to convince the public to get behind it, but I don't think we need that. I think where we sit in the location of Chicago, that lake being clean is an economic engine like no other. And it's absolutely the right time to do it. Momentum is swinging in the proper direction. Movement is heading south on US 41, movement is heading south on I-65. We're still the same distance from downtown Chicago, and a clean lake is an economic engine
I wish we had
for
a marketing firm
the
now.
next 10 generations, or we fall in the next 10
Mr.
generations,
President,
sir.
I wish we had that marketing firm now, because I would like for somebody to be able to convince me to gamble $1.6 million of the taxpayers' money and the ratepayers' money on engineering for something that could quite possibly never happen.
Well, half of that, we've already gambled it. We've already done it. But we were making the commitment by moving in a design agreement. But yeah, I'm with you, Greg. It's a tough decision.
I don't
It's
think any
doing
marketing firm.
what's right.
I mean, knowing what I know
No,
about it.
define grants, I'm saying. I mean, there's, so,
Mr. President,
yes, sir.
as I read this agreement, it looks to me like on the design portion of this, the town is responsible for 35% of the design. The total cost of design is 1.667 million.
Yes,
The federal government share would be 785,200.
yes,
The local share would be 422,800.
that's right.
And the cost for betterments of 459,000.
Yes,
So-
with the LPP, Mr. Niemeyer.
Right, so that looks to me like 1.260 roughly $1 million committed to this, and by the terms of payment of payable installments of 200,000 every 6 months,
With the LPP, yes.
correct. That's what we have in front of us.
No, that's not, yes, we do have that in front of us, but we do not have to move forward with the LPP. We can change back to the NER
What I'm trying to get
program.
straight here is the numbers. How
Yes.
much will we be, if this is approved, how much will we be withdrawing from our wastewater utility funds on a yearly basis to fund both the feasibility and design? What is the number?
The first year would be 200,000 the way it sits today with the locally preferred plan, because
That's
CLIA
next to
would
the
donate
feasibility.
next, close to
What
that
about,
200,000.
what about both together? Can somebody give me a number?
$400,000, worst
It is an
case.
interesting calculation. The federal government on the design agreement cannot ask us for more money than they have for the project. Sue and I went over this for several hours. When we make the $200,000 payments to the federal government, to the Army Corps of Chicago for the project, and the funds they have on hand, in order, they can only ask us for what they can match at their 65%. Currently, the first payment for design would be $141,000.
When would that be due?
And that would be due, that would be part of the memorandum of agreement as I described, to call out those due dates. So, once we get those terms established, I would say you're not going to see a due date until, obviously, both of them are executed. I'm gonna say it's gonna take at least a month, if not a month and a half, to get that memorandum of agreement
So,
signed. So it could potentially not be even due till 2020.
so is there any sort of amortization schedule of this? Any sort of projections of the revenue streams of the wastewater utility to support the other needed projects that we would still have the margin we need to support that stuff? Has that work been done?
That work has not been done. That work needed to be directed by you to be completed. That is part of the review analysis and coming up in the utility board, part of the operational capacity reviews of the utility, and setting those timelines in place of the different projects that we have, and the tipping point of internal borrowing to going out for larger, long-term financing, and putting the timelines in place for the water utility projects and the wastewater projects.
So if I'm correct, then we would be essentially signing on to borrowing money, although it's from ourselves, okay? Without knowing the terms of the contract, the amortization of it. I mean, I've borrowed money in business, and I always have an idea up front when I'm gonna pay it off, what revenue streams I'm gonna use, and how that's gonna balance out in the whole picture of the business, what the value is. I mean, it's really a business decision that we're sitting here with no business information.
Based on
We've
that-
had years to get this business information together, and we don't have it. That's what pisses me off about this. We've had years, 20 years.
That's right.
To put this together.
That's right. And 4 years ago, when we had the CEDAT money, I was rooting for, and we told Mr. Visklosky, we're not going to take any of that money and give it to this Lake County. We're the only municipality in the Lake County that didn't give them any, because it only felt right that we use that money for eco-restoration.
John,
That wasn't much.
If
It's
we
only
would
been
have
3
taken
years.
all of that
So that's
seeded
only
money.
600,000.
If we would have taken all that seeded money.
Yes, sir.
And put it into this fund, yeah, we would have money for this. But
Yes.
we would have neighborhoods where people are still driving through craters to get to their houses.
You're right.
But
You're right.
the fact that we're considering an item that we have no business plan on, None whatsoever.
It's,
We're still gonna analyze it after we approve it.
we need
That's
to
not
try
how
to get the
anybody does business.
$11.8 million from
You don't
the-
do business that way.
Correct.
Your company doesn't do
That's
business
correct.
that way.
Randy, we're
Nobody
dealing
does.
with the federal government with this design agreement.
I don't give a
of
damn
getting
about the federal
$11.8
government.
million.
This is the town of Cedar Lake.
We have an opportunity to get the $11.8 million, possibly in 2020. We can go back.
Possibly, John.
Well, it's a big.
But we gotta have
it's
our own
possible.
business plan. Forget the federal government.
You bet.
We don't have our own business plan in place.
We have a funding source. It's called the wastewater
But we
treatment.
don't have the schedule written out. Nobody knows the true numbers. We have to analyze that. We gotta look at
It's
that.
gonna, Randy, we're trying to build a West Side Sewer Interceptor. That design engineering costs are gonna quadruple, the attorney fees, all the legal, buying all the land.
What are you
This
talking
is-
about? The design engineering has already been paid
No,
for
I'm
on
talking
phase
about
one.
acquiring all the land, and, yeah, phase one, then we have phase two. I mean, this
Of
is.
course,
that's
and those are
another
needed
two-
projects to
Okay,
service the public.
very fine. And that's a couple of, that's a 10-year project.
But we have a business plan with it. We
That's a
put
10-year
together
project.
a master plan. We have,
At this point in time, we need
Sewer
to have a
business
plan
plans.
for this locally preferred, okay? And we have to have a plan for the normal plan, right?
I don't disagree with
If
you.
we sign into this agreement, is there a chance that funding doesn't get approved? Is there a chance that we are out the 1.6 less the NER plan, so let's call it 1.2 or 1 million? Yes, that is a chance.
John, I'm not even talking about the what-ifs. I'm
Okay.
talking about the concrete, what we have in front of us. I asked,
Okay.
is there an amortization schedule? Have we looked at projected sewer revenues that we'll have due to the growth of the town? Have we done any of that work that you would do in business? That when I go to my bank and say, I need $600,000, they're gonna say, all right, lay out a budget, lay out a business plan, show us the revenue streams, tell us where this is coming from, give us a financial history. All that stuff has to be done. Mr. Gross is in business. He couldn't go borrow $1 million without doing that work. We haven't done the work. That's the problem.
Jill, do you have any additional items you want to add regarding that? We have the ability to utilize,
John, I understand your passion for it.
We have the ability to use
And I'm just as
wastewater.
passionate about
We do.
seeing this community grow in the right way.
This is just
But
the
I'm
next
just as
phase.
passionate
Yeah, I'm with you.
about making sure that we are properly monitoring the money that the ratepayers put us in stewardship of
absolutely,
for their interest.
absolutely, absolutely, Randy?
Randy, I think you're right. The vehicle that the government has provided for us is inexplicable as far as logic goes. And I've often said there is absolutely no logic in government, none.
But we have a
This is
chance
just
to be
a
logical.
prime example of that.
It will die on the vine. We have an opportunity to move it forward to the next step. It will die on the vine. Trying to put that type of a plan together. We have a colonel who's probably going to leave within 6 months. They stay about 3 or 4 years. We're taking a decade step back. That's what the fact of the matter
John,
is.
I've leveraged almost every
We have an
asset.
opportunity to use wastewater, Randy.
I-
We do.
I get
Is-
it.
Is it the
I've-
best? No. Is it the greatest? No. Is there ways to deduct that? We're getting 200,000 of that 1.6 million if we went locally preferred plan. 200,000 comes directly from CLIA. Once we get into design agreement, the rejuvenate, Bob's able to get the CLIA group back together again, if you will. People they've become complacent with this.
I have a ton of faith in what Bob does and what he's done. His reputation and his record is impeccable.
Do you not have faith in your cousin, Rick Niemeyer?
Listen, I don't have faith in anybody in higher levels of government, okay? But what I do have faith in.
Welcome home.
Yeah.
What I do have faith in is when you do business and you borrow money, and I've leveraged basically all the assets that are to my name
Sure.
to grow my business.
Sure.
But I've had to do it with a plan. I've had to do it with an outlook. I've had to put things on paper first and not just pull something out of the sky and say, well, I've got this money sitting over here. No, there's got to be some rationalization of a business model to this. People complain that government is never run like a business. Well, I'm a businessman. So
Okay.
are you, John.
Absolutely.
And so is Greg. And so is Ralph. And so is Rick. And so is Dave. I mean, all of us have this experience in business. Why would we go and do something like this when there is absolutely no business model to it? There's no amortization schedule. There's no revenue projections. It's crazy. I risk things every day.
You bring up some valid points,
But
Randy,
it's risked
at the same
with
time,
calculation.
you bet. And for how many years have we been signing these letters saying we're committed, we're committed, we're committed, we're committed?
And I kept
Here we
saying in
are on
public
August-
meetings, guys, we're gonna have to have a plan.
And that's the only thing we need to do is get the design agreement started, finished, and then we can change the way, we don't have to go into construction, Randy. That's a whole nother stage.
John, I've made
But-
my statement
You
on it.
betcha.
That's where I stand on this. We need to have a business plan, and we don't.
We have a means to pay the engineering, design engineer. Anybody else
means
want to
with
make
no
any
end.
comments? I think we beat this one as much as we possibly could. I feel everybody knows where we're at on it. At this time, I would like to ask for a motion, take action on the United States Army Corps Engineer Design Agreement. Utilizing the numbers that we discussed from wastewater treatment, whether it be the locally preferred plan and/or the
Can you repeat those
NER
numbers,
plan.
please?
I can. For
I'm still not clear.
ecosystem feasibility, it's 1.6 million. Jill, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Once the agreement is agreed upon, which no memorandum of understanding I've been a part of with the Corps has happened in less than a year, payments would be $200,000 every 6 months in the ecosystem design, of which we would be responsible for half. Is that correct, Jill? Half of the 1.6 million for the feasibility, which would be 800,000?
Correct. Actually, costs are projected to be, excuse me. Yes, you are correct. I apologize.
Thank you.
I was looking at the wrong thing.
And then ecosystem design, Randy, would be 1.7 million, and it would be wastewater and variable pay, as the feds have money to match. So that would be those two numbers, responsible for half again.
Is there
with
an
the
estimated yearly total? Based on
$400,000.
Well, it says. here on the-
$200,000
on the
every 6 months.
Feasibility, 200 every 6 months. That's 400 on just that.
Right.
So what about the?
That's
design?
$400,000 for a year. When would the design actually begin? It's, I think, $141,000 to begin design would
So the
would be
first
that
year would
number.
be 541,000?
For 541 if it was the LPP.
Yes.
That's correct. 541. First year. While it might not be ideal, having $10+ million in wastewater treatment, that is a revenue source. That doesn't take into consideration minus the $200,000 that CLIA has. And Randy, I agree with you, trying to hope and think we're going to get grants and
I'm not
so on
even
and so
talking
forth.
about that. I'm
No,
just
no,
talking about
saying
our business.
Hard
plan.
numbers. This is what
Yep.
it is.
I just
541.
want a business plan.
Yeah, without CLIA, that's what it is.
Good God.
That's what it is.
What would be the second year? Do we have any idea? Would it be the 400 again, right?
It would, if I may?
Yeah.
It
Yes,
would be
please.
the 400,000, and again, as the schedule works out with design and the pay down, as the Army Corps spends down the funds they have, they can only ask for what they can match. So they can only ask us for that 35%. So if you take the 422, subtract out the 141, that leaves us at, what am I at, 280? 259, thank you. They can only ask us for what they have. Unfortunately, it's a very vague number, but as we send them that $200,000, that replenishes their cash that they could ask us for more of. At one point, though, with the locally preferred plan, once we pay that 422, that's pretty much where we're at. They're paying the 65%.
And we do know, Jill, that the NER plan is probably what we'll have to do due to the,
It's a very confusing formula, and it took a very long time.
Hey,
Thank you.
John, before there's a motion made, Sue, can you make any sense of this? You're here, I mean, we're
Yeah,
paying
we
you to be
should-
here, so.
that's right.
What the hell?
Okay. In reviewing the feasibility study, we didn't have an agreement with the Army Corps to do the feasibility, to pay for it, okay? They went ahead and did it. So if we walk away today,
There is nothing that we owe to them. Where we come into having to pay for the feasibility study is entering into the agreement for the design. It's called pre-construction engineering and design. The feasibility was 1.6 million. They would require us to pay them $800,000 of the feasibility if we enter into the design agreement. On top of that, then we would owe them 35% of the National Ecosystem Restoration Plan, which is their plan, not both lobes, not two lobes of the lake, just one. We would owe 35% of that, which is $430,000. Of that $430,000, I believe they would require upfront $141,000 so that they can get started. Then if you choose the locally preferred plan, which is the two lobes of the lake, the design costs for that are $475,000, which we are responsible, Cedar Lake is responsible for 100% of that. So roughly between where the feasibility was 1.6 million, the design is 1.6 million, 7 million. We are responsible, if we go with the locally preferred plan, $1.6 million. And it's made up of those three components. I do not know how they will bill us or expect payment on the two design components of the total $1.7 million. They have said for the $800,000 that we have to reconstitute to them for the feasibility, it's $200,000 every 6 months.
Beginning when, beginning when?
Beginning when is that?
That's the million-dollar question.
I would, if I'm a betting person, which I'm usually not, I would tell you up front. 200,000 and 141, so they get $341,000.
And then
right
200,000
away.
in 6 months.
And 6 months, and then 6 months after that, and 6 months after that. But the design is going on the entire time, so you're going to be billed for that design also. And that is
That's gonna
where
come out,
Randy
okay,
says
okay.
he would like to see an amortization schedule or a payment schedule. There is not one, because it has to do with how they progress. The only thing that we know is we're gonna have to pay $200,000.
But at the very least, we could do some projections of our revenue stream that we are dedicating to it, which would be wastewater funds, which is what anybody would do with a plan like this to spend that kind of money. You would project out revenues to see if you have what you think you'll need to cover all the bases that those revenues cover.
Exactly.
That's all. This isn't rocket
My
science.
first
No, it's
suggestion
not.
would be, how much government cost can we cut to help fund this? Oh, that's what you'd do in a business.
Well,
You
in a
cut back
business,
on-
you would either raise revenues or cut costs. So, or do both. So in this case,
Well, we already raised revenues,
in
that's
this
why we
case,
got $10
we
million
have a
in the
revenue
sewer
stream
fund.
that's been identified by our president and the town administrator that this is the revenue stream that we've identified. Okay, let's project it out. Is there growth in that revenue stream? You know, can it meet all the obligations? If we have an economic downturn that's catastrophic, and we need to borrow $600,000 from ourselves like we have before, can we handle it? Can we pay our bills? Do we have to lay people off? I mean, these are just things that we gotta think about.
Government never does that.
The other thing I wanted to mention to you guys is where we say we have 10 million, okay, in sewer. We don't have 10 million available like that. We have operating funds that we have to keep. We have debt funds that are included in that 10 million that you will not be using.
And we have planned infrastructure projects that are gonna take a
Exactly.
significant amount of money.
Fact.
And we don't even know
Thank
if
you,
we
sir.
could
And
pay the $1.6 million because we don't know what we have to spend.
Have you been a part of
on the
any project
infrastructure.
like this, either at London Witty or anywhere else in your life?
I've been part of it with the state. I'm involved with some other communities around the state with large projects.
With the Corps, I mean?
Not with the Corps, though.
I see.
Not with the Corps.
I see.
So, I mean, where this comes from, we refunded the debt on sewer. So basically, we've got 8 more years left on the sewer debt, and that maximum annual payment is $464,000. When we refunded that, I put into our, what we call our revenue requirements, $500,000 a year that we would say we would pay each year out of our revenues for improvements in our system. That is out of our revenues. However, we've got several projects that have been mentioned to me, and the costs on them, like the $2 million for the phase 1 of the West Side Interceptor. We've also made the short-term commitment that for the water tower, that we would use that, and that was,
Fact.
we pledged that money, unofficially pledged that money, that we would use that as an interfund loan for that process. And then we've got any work that is coming down the pike with the Lowell plant.
Upgrades to Lowell.
That we have talked about on that interceptor.
Anywhere between $500,000 and $750,000 just for a solar project.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, while we are meeting our needs and we are accumulating some money, my rough estimate based on my 2017 analysis was that it would take 2 to 5 years to replace the money that we use, and if we don't ever get it back on the design. And that's
That's a reality of it.
the reality.
That's the gamble that we're
Well,
taking.
that is helpful information, Sue.
That it is.
And a point of clarity, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
I don't have faith in state government. I believe that my second cousin Rick would carry the water for us.
Yes.
But he's got to carry it to a room of 50 gray-haired fuddy-duddies that think that Northwest Indiana doesn't exist. So he's got to get all these people to agree that, hey, this is a pretty important project for the state to support.
You bet.
And boy, good luck with that, because the golden circle of Indianapolis is the only thing that exists in this state.
She lives in Indianapolis. That's not very
But
nice.
she knows that's true.
So,
Rural Morgan County.
oh, okay. So again, thank you for your explanation. Yes.
Thank you, yes, I appreciate it.
Mr. Niemeyer, yes, you can consider it as a gamble, and it's one that would pay off once we have the ability to get the dollars from.
Not even talking about the
Viscosky.
gamble, John.
No,
Just talking about
but she made
Business.
it clear. She made it clear.
as
It would
clear as
take
she
X
could.
number of years
2 to 5 years to recapture that money
That's right.
while we're paying it out.
That's right. That's fact.
Okay, I'm done thinking about this.
Okay, perfect. Do we have any action wanting to be taken on the United States Army Corps of Engineer Design Agreement for a second time? The future is in our hands of the community. 2 to 5 years is paying back something that possibly could go away is minuscule, considering the amount of energy and money we've already spent. We've spent over $2 million
Do we have a
on the land.
deadline on this?
We do not have a deadline. However, the colonel told me last week on the phone, he's trying to get it put on with the 2020 budget for approval.
Mr.
Well, let her
President,
find
if
it.
I may,
Yes,
this falls.
yes.
This falls
Next year,
into the fiscal.
21.
Into the federal fiscal calendar, which is not the same as our.
Correct.
Our calendar, so. some
But it
of
gets
that
voted on next
timelines
spring.
Of requesting funding falls into your various fiscal calendars based on federal, state, and local.
Okay, so what is your understanding of when, if it got approved next spring, it would be?
You'll look
you have a guess?
you'll look at asking for construction funds, another year out.
Minimum spring of 2021.
Well, spring of 2021, they'll already have their 2022 budget
Right.
prepared.
Well, the reason I asked that question,
You
John,
bet,
is
you
because,
bet.
I mean, I don't necessarily want to see this die on the vine, okay? But I'm also not comfortable voting affirmative for something like this tonight without our financial consultant doing some of this work. So we can have a balanced, educated approach to this thing. Instead of, I mean, if there's not a timeline and we can go 2 more weeks and we get this information, I might be likely to support it. if the information affirmatively supports revenue growth and the ability to fund our needs. But tonight, I'm not gonna be in that camp, just because of that.
It would be in the September meeting, since there's not a.
Well, whatever.
But I'm with you.
September, whatever.
Mr. President,
Yes.
in order to do
Yeah, it's
that
2 weeks.
financial analysis, Sue, would we not need an engagement agreement with you to do that analysis for us?
Yes.
So that would be one of the recommendations.
We could make
at
that
the-
engagement right here.
And make that engagement and direction, but I'm not authorized to make that engagement or direction to the
Very
financial
good.
advisor to have an analysis of that done.
Give me 4 weeks, Randy, so that gives us time to get it.
Why would we need 4 weeks?
Because
That's our
the
next meeting,
is-
September
Yeah, the next
That's when our
meeting.
next
We're not-
meeting is
it's not-
scheduled.
We're not, next meeting scheduled, whatever, 20 or 17?
There'd be no meeting on September 3rd?
No.
Why?
We're all at the AIM conference the last week of August, and
Mhm.
your attorney's down there as well. And it was determined at the beginning of the calendar year, when we set the schedule for the meetings, that there wasn't going to be a meeting.
So there couldn't be one
following it.
scheduled at this point?
There could be,
Oh, okay.
if you schedule a special
I
meeting.
mean, if this is an important item to everybody, like I think it is.
It is, yeah.
And it's important to people like Bob, and it's important to a lot of the community. Although when I've campaigned and walked neighborhoods, I can count on one hand how many people have ever mentioned it as a concern of theirs, unless it's lakefront neighborhoods. Then, in my opinion, it should be fully vetted as a business model to project this stuff out. And I don't think we've done that work yet. But, John, it's your prerogative. You're the president. If you want to call for a motion
Well,
for
let me
it,
first
go
ask
ahead.
Sue,
Yeah, so,
would you be able to make inroads into this by September 3rd?
Yes, I can.
You would be able to?
And we'd be able to have that information to be able to analyze it, look at it, consider it, maybe a couple days ahead of time. Would that be possible?
September 2nd is
I like to
Labor
put
Day.
pressure on people, Sue.
yeah.
She'll be at the AIM conference.
And she'll be at the
We could
AIM
always do the
conference
following
next
week.
We could
you
do
know.
it the 10th, couldn't we?
We could do it the following week.
the 10th?
I don't care. I just want to see this thing be properly considered, because right now, I don't know if, I can only speak for myself, I can't give it positive consideration without there being some kind of workup of the numbers here. And if it turns out that, hey, you know what, we're gonna have some projected surpluses in sewer revenue that we don't think, fine. I'm good with it, but it's gotta be balanced. We've gotta weigh it against everything that we've got going here, and there's a lot going.
John?
Yes.
Would it make more sense to engage Sue and her firm, give her till September 10th, so she can chew on this and completely digest it, completely put it together, have a draft report to you, and you meet on the 17th, it gives everybody here a bit of time, not receiving documents the night of a meeting, not receiving financial
We,
report.
we could do that, so.
And could
we
you
need-
talk to the colonel
Would
about
somebody
what we're
like,
doing
I'd
here?
like to amend the agenda, we'll remove the item, or defer the item of the USAC design agreement to the 17th of September, but I would like to make, add the memorandum of understanding, is that what we're calling it with Sue, or engagement agreement? I guess it's engagement agreement with London Witty, and add that to the agenda in the, as 1.5, and ask for somebody to make a motion on engagement agreement with
Mr.
London
President, I'll
Witty.
make a motion to engage London Witty to analyze the source of revenue cited for the USAC design agreement and analyze that balanced against all the capital projects that we have currently on the list.
Okay, we have a,
John?
yes, Mr.
Could you-
Austin.
Could you add and authorize the town council president to execute the engagement?
And authorize the town council president to execute the engagement.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Julie. Roll call, please. As a favorable engagement letter, that is.
Sorry, finishing notes. Robert Carnahan.
Yes.
Greg Parker.
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer.
Yes.
Richard Sharp.
Yes.
Julie Rivera.
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes.
John,
Motion carries
will
7-0.
you please communicate with the colonel and let him know what we're doing?
I
that
will.
We're trying to get to this point to make sure we're doing this the right way.
You betcha.
Okay.
I'll do that, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for sitting through that, ladies and gentlemen. Item number 2, property transfer. Jill?
Mr. President, at your last meeting, we brought up the property transfer. One of the properties we acquired in a tax sale transfer from Lake County was 13424 Moore Street. We had received a request from Yvonne Taves of Wahlberg Photography. That parcel is immediately adjacent to her current photography business. It is west of the back of her property. She has offered to transfer a parcel to us of 13336 Moore Street to the town. As David reported at the last meeting, the parcels are about identical in size, shape, and value. It was our recommendation to approve this property transfer, allow David to prepare the transfer documentation, and have you execute the documents to complete the transfer. If
Okay.
I'm missing anything, David, please.
No, a simple transaction, 2 quitclaim deeds, just 2 disclosure documents, and $10.
You got it.
That's what it's gonna end up being, or close.
Okay, I'll entertain action and a motion, form of a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Ralph, in favor of?
Yes.
We have a motion by Ralph.
Second.
Favor of property transfer,
I have
second by
a
Rick.
I have a question, just
Go ahead.
maybe inserting logic again, but what's the benefit of this? What's the benefit to the taxpayers in the town of putting money and energy into this?
One of the benefits is one of the things actually discussed last night at the RDC meeting, and as discussed by the council, we're creating walkability in the community. The parcel that they are looking to transfer to us is right on Morse. So should we need to widen the road, add in a walking path, add in a bike path, that would allow us to already own that parcel and not have to acquire right-of-way easements and other necessities. One of the items we were cleaning up from the tax sales were parcels that had taxes that were far exceeded the value of the parcels. So this parcel would be added to Ms. Taves' current parcel and now be taxable to the community.
That actually makes sense.
Very logical.
Thanks.
Okay, roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan.
Yes.
Greg Parker.
Yes.
Ralph Miller.
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer.
Yes.
Richard Sharp.
Yes.
Julie Rivera.
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Moving into reports, town council, does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up?
Yes. I would like the support of trying to petition the United States Post Office to put a mailbox drop-off box right out here in front of Town Hall.
You're the man, Bob.
I think go ahead and do it. And let's,
You're the right guy for that job.
if they say yes, come back and let us know, and we'll take action at that time.
Well, I'd like permission to go ahead and do that. Is that agreeable with everybody?
All in
I
favor?
don't think you need our permission.
All in favor?
I'll make a motion
Aye.
first to support Bob's efforts. There's a motion.
Second.
Okay, we got a second by
Now we're
Rick.
in it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Bob, you have permission.
Go get him, Bob.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Had a conversation with Becky Gobert the other day. Had a lot of conversations this week, but this one was also a request. There was an offer made to her, she's probably watching tonight, and the 2 weeks ago meeting, that some documentation would be provided that the flooding situation at her house was repaired for real estate disclosure purposes. And she asked me if her property flooded again, would that apply to her as well? Would the town be responsible then for any damage that would be done if her property, while she owns it, flooded?
It's a good question.
It is a good question.
Dave, could you weigh in on
Smart
that?
lady.
There are a lot of answers to this one. You didn't want to hear that from me.
Well, I mean,
First of
this
all-
meeting has been so iffy, Dave, I'm expecting to see frogs feathering nests tomorrow when I wake up.
We're already in the corner.
The letter communication that I understood was to be drafted for your consideration of issuance was that the conditions that caused damage to her property had been corrected based upon engineering report and confirmation. Talked to Jill about this today. We're talking tomorrow night, I think. Tomorrow evening.
6:30 tomorrow night.
With our engineer for the confirmation communication from him, so I can prepare for you that letter notice to her. There's a lot of people in that chain, but that's how it's working on this one.
Okay.
Now, that didn't answer all your questions, that only answered the first one. With regard to damage, all we're saying in this letter as a town is you've corrected the conditions out there that cause damage to her property. It's not an insurance policy, it's not an in perpetuity communication, it's not.
It's not a guarantee that it's fixed.
Oh, no, it's a comment and communication, official communication of this town, that the conditions which caused damage to her property had been corrected.
And I made that statement I made in lieu of any resolution by the county. We wanted Jill to still pursue and Julie to still pursue the resolution that we're after. But if that can't be had, we've got to put this to bed at some point.
Yeah, another question was, the other neighbors that are affected by the Wicker Meadows flooding, would they be allowed the same guarantees as Becky proposed guarantees?
I don't know if that there's any guarantee in a letter like that, but
I will not draft a letter, you will not see a letter from me that says you are guaranteeing anything. You're reporting the condition and the actions that you took to correct the
because
situation.
there could be a catastrophic flood that we haven't seen in 200 years, that it doesn't matter what kind of infrastructure you have. I sit on high ground in Utopia and I never flood, but if you have one of those, I'll probably have water in my crawl space. I mean, there's just certain things that, I don't know if you can predict out everything, but a letter like that would at least give her the ability, if she decides to sell her home, to do it.
Well, I've said this
free and clear.
before. I hope we don't have a flood like that,
I hope not
because if
either.
Noah had to build the ark again by the time he got his engineering report.
There's already one built in Kentucky.
It's over. I know, it's
Yep.
built already.
That's where I'm going.
By the time he got engineering approval and permits, it'd be too late.
Anybody else? Council? Okay, moving right along, clerk treasurer.
Budget talks are continuing with department heads. I've met with Jill a couple of times and we'll be meeting up again to discuss some of the plans for 2020.
Okay. Jill, anything?
Backing up what Jen had said, Sarah had sent out an email looking at some dates. We're compiling those dates and we'll bring back to you the one that is most favorable to everyone.
Okay.
I believe right now we're between September 6th and September 19th
19th, I believe.
for the two dates to
Right.
have a work session with council to discuss the budget.
Okay.
Going back to Wicker Meadows, we did receive a letter request from another adjacent property owner to Ms. Gobert. I will distribute that to you and to the attorney for discussion on that letter. I have spoken with Lake County Surveyor Bill Emerson. He has had a discussion with Mr. Fleming last week. A meeting is being scheduled with myself, Don, Commissioner Tippy, the MS4 engineer, and Mr. Fleming. The date scheduled right now is September 13th.
That's positive.
Okay.
So there was some positive talks of various avenues of looking forward and the possibility of, again, collaboration between county and us and Mr. Fleming for a project moving forward. So we'll see what the outcome of those are, and I'll report back to you at your September 17th meeting.
Okay.
One of the other things I need action on is the big flashing signs at both ends of the construction were requested when we closed Klein and Lake Shore Drive. Those signs are being paid for by the town. They're not part of the project. And continuing having those signs up indicating that the road is closed.
Are you referring to Parish at 133rd?
The one at Parish at 133rd, and then there is one on Morrison, 133rd, Lakeshore Drive. Do we want to continue those for another month?
How much they cost?
The cost is $1,200, $1,300 per sign.
I need to own some of those signs.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Chief, what's your opinion?
Need to be renting them.
Yeah, I need to own some and rent them out.
Chief Dave?
I think they're,
Lord have mercy.
We should use show of
Okay. So you need action from us
I would
to
need
say,
action from you to continue to keep those signs.
is everybody okay keeping the signs?
I want to find out where I can buy one.
Perhaps we should own one.
Several.
Reprogram it
I
ourselves.
think we have an ordinance that says you can't have them.
Owning trucks is terrible. Owning signs sounds good.
I'd like to ask somebody to make a motion that we keep them based on Chief Dave Colson's opinion.
What was his opinion? I didn't hear it.
That we keep them.
Okay.
So move.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you, Bob, thank you, Julie. Motion to keep the sign, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, sign stay, thank you. What else, Jill?
Additionally, on Klein and Lakeshore Drive, I distributed to you the weekly construction report. The underground work is continuing. Removal of the existing pavement, placing the storm sewer structures and lines. I know Tim's been out there almost every day. We are having the construction meeting with NDOT tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. That'll be at the construction office, which is right behind Subway. If anyone would like to attend, I was told to inform you of when those meetings are.
Thank you.
Did you ever find out about that concrete structure that's in the chamber parking lot that I asked you about last night?
Yes, that will be the level of the pavement.
It'll be the level of the pavement, it won't be stuck up like it is right now?
Yeah, that'll all be the grade, Bob.
That'll all be
Yeah, it has to
decorated.
be.
And same with the other structure you inquired of. Sorry, I didn't get back to you on that earlier.
Is that it?
That is all I have right now.
Okay, as far as written communication, did you have anything, new highlights
You skipping the
regarding
town
the?
attorney?
No report.
Mr. Oshchin, would you like to report on anything? And as far as your written communication, Jill, do you have anything?
I have one thing to highlight in there.
Okay.
Most of the projects,
Sorry,
you
David.
know, are ongoing. The one is the Highland project. As we were going through the design and Don completing the design, NIPSCO Gas, as I reported previously, reached out to us as they want to replace the steel gas mains that are in the area, like they did similar to our High Grove and South Shore projects. We met with those representatives on August 12th and have requested that they bring us back their schedule and report back to us in 4 weeks. The utility relocations also requires NIPSCO to obtain some easements with the interestingness of these older roads. Also, part of that project, they are working on preparing 2 drainage easements that we will need for the project. So as this continues, there are some steps that are still being taken. So I don't want you to think that that project has just fallen off
Okay.
the radar. It is, but to put a road in that NIPSCO's gonna come back and tear up, or for us to have a situation again where NIPSCO comes in and delays a project, and then we have delays, and
Fair enough, makes sense.
we will keep reporting back to you on that.
Is there an estimated time on that?
Timeline.
Spring of 2020.
So I missed that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
NIPSCO ought to be a government entity. They're just as slow as and unresponsive as government and very expensive.
But they're not a monopoly, right? They are not a monopoly.
No, not at all.
If they were a government entity, it wouldn't matter.
Okay. I'd just like to make a quick comment. Chief Todd, nice job by your volunteers organizing and pulling off the event that they did last week. And if you want to add anything, you can.
Absolutely not.
No? Chief Dave, you want to add anything? Okay.
You had enough?
I
Okay,
would
open it for-
like to commend Todd on the presentation you did at the fire station of washing of the truck, I think you called it or something. It was the best presentation. You honored every police officer. I was very impressed with that.
Thank you.
There was discussion last meeting about permit fee waiver for the gym floor at the Boys and Girls Club, and we made a decision on
Firefighters,
that.
excuse me.
Didn't we take action on it last?
We took
sorry,
action
yeah.
on the licensing fee for the contractor.
Yeah, I thought we waived.
No permit fee got waived.
No permit.
It was
fee
just a
going?
licensing fee.
I didn't bring it up, somebody else.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna have that on the agenda tonight, Joe.
I apologize,
Yeah, that
Must
was
have
supposed to be on the
missed it, or-
agenda, Greg. I would be welcome to somebody.
Can we add it?
You can add it, John.
It's a little bit late, but I would like to add the waiver, the waiving of the fees for the Clear Lake Boys and Girls Club to the construction company M&M and, was it
R&R Floors and M&M General
R&R
Contractor.
Floors and M&M General Contractors for that project only?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve waiving that fee.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Julie, second by Ralph.
Aye.
Roll call when you are ready.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer,
No.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
Julia Rivera,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries 6-1. Public comment, please. Anybody in the audience want to get up, state your name and address for the record?
We have some people that stuck around with us.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Wilson, 8337 West 128th Place, Cedar Lake, Indiana, 46303.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, again, I'm not gonna point fingers, I'm not gonna name names. I'm very happy to hear that procedures are being written up to things to be followed in the town, so things can get taken care of. As a town council, please keep in mind, the infrastructure is just as important as improvement.
Thank you.
If you cannot fix something right the first time, guarantee it, you're going to be back to fix it, and it's going to be worse. If any of you want to risk your lives to come down my street and see for yourself, feel free. I'm more than happy to show you around. When people are appointed to the boards, whether it's the BZA, the stormwater, I've been to the swearing in. You need to remind them, encourage them, mentor them, if you will, so that they understand this isn't a pat on the back, hey, you got a seat. You are there to do something. You took an oath for that seat. I took mine seriously. Hopefully you guys take yours seriously. Okay? Being shoved away and swept away, and you don't know anything, they don't look at anything, they defer to one people, then why do you have a board? Why is there a town council? If you're not going to make sure the infrastructure is there to keep moving on, why are we still here? Seriously. Things are slow, 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 and it keeps piling up, piling up, piling up.
No, Jennifer, you're exactly right, and I hate to interrupt you, but I want to, when folks get appointed, elected, they're appointed and elected by the people to represent them, and too often, it, at least in my opinion, now it's become represent the municipality and the money and the business, and the people go by the wayside.
Jennifer, we've been doing a lot of roads, and I do apologize that your road has yet
It's not my
been
road.
fixed properly.
Her road's been fixed.
It's her drainage. I went out.
should just finish.
Sure.
Thank you. The drainage work that was done with the road improvement 6 years ago was not done properly. I have been going to the town for 2 years now, telling them that there are issues. I was ignored. Without going into detail about NIPSCO and the dangers and everything else that's going on, and the fact that it's still not resolved, I'm letting you know. Now, everything is not being paid attention to. I'm all for Bob Gross's project, by the way. Cedar Lake Enhancement Association came through and they did my property. Do you know the piece of ditch that goes through my property is bigger than the piece of ditch that the town has to maintain next to the road? And I
Yes.
take care of mine all by myself, and I don't have a machine. This has been going on for 30 years I've lived here. I've been here time and time again, right, Dave? I'll fix it, I'll fix it, I'll fix it. It's not being fixed. It's not just mine either. It's not just mine. It's the roads up past Zip Foods. All of that water that formed ice by Zip Foods. I got it, I know where it's coming from. No, you don't, because it's still at the very top of the hill. You fixed it down here in the middle of the hill, you didn't fix it at the top of the hill. And potholes, that is truly only a one-lane road. They got a pothole in there that would bury those town trucks. Honest, I'm not kidding you. Where the water comes off of their property that goes down and forms that ice at Zip Foods. I'm not gonna complain about the turnabout, roundabout. You know, I can disagree with it, and that's cool. That's what you guys decided. Go for it. Closing the road. Jerk move, okay? You put kids in danger. Sorry, 1.5 million roads. Pay attention to the infrastructure. You're not gonna get anywhere.
Thank you.
And take it seriously. And I've been in talks with Jill, and I'm not gonna say anything else, because Jill is taking care of it. Jill needs to call me back. Jill needs to make a meeting with me. I need to keep communicating with Jill, because now the shit box has been dumped on her lap. Never should have gone that far. And it's not going to any further.
Very good, thank you. I just remind people during public comment, please, no profanity. Anyone else for public comment? Mr. Becker, name and address, please, for the record.
Chuck Becker, 6100 West 136th Place, excuse me. I had a couple things. One, you know about the water advisory, and there need to be better communications. How we go about that. As of 6:45 on the way here, I stopped at Luke's,
Mhm.
which is on our well.
Mhm.
They had no idea. They still serve soft drinks. There's a water advisory that it's supposed to be, it's not, it's not mandatory.
Mhm.
But what happens if it was more serious? What happens if there was bacteria found
Mhm.
in the water?
I know we have the hotline, Tim and Jill. Do we also have signs that we say boil advisory is in order?
We
For
do
people-
not- We have that code red, and also the code red incorporates every single water customer on our system through your credit history and all other things. They have ways, contact information for every person that is paying a water bill. So
I see.
according to what I was told, every person that pays a water bill is notified of this boil advisory.
So the owner or-
Chuck brought up a good thing
Yeah.
about, the businesses, whether they need some special notification. We've had discussions today about signage.
Okay.
Notifying signage, and the question arose to me is, where do we put the signs? What happens if we have something on the east side? You know what I mean? Like, signs are only as good as the people that see it. And that's why we moved to this code red notification. and
You bet.
this Other notification, supposedly we have to guarantee that every paying customer is in contact, which is probably Loop Corporate, somebody in Indonesia that, that pays the
Yeah.
bill, but.
Indonesia.
Or wherever.
I just think having a few signs that we,
Oh.
I mean,
Would-
Comedy.
So that, I could see some necessity in maybe,
A couple.
maybe, something to the businesses or whatever.
You bet.
We were looking, we were actually discussing that today and how, we could better notify, every single person. I know they put it on Facebook, they put it on everything that most people know, but and that that service supposedly, correct me if I'm wrong, but it says it notifies every paying customer, every person that pays the water bill is notified.
What was the notification?
That there was a water boil advisory for the east side.
Robin's Nest and
It
MacArthur
would
School?
go out, it would go out to
And
those.
MacArthur School
specific
was notified?
areas. To my knowledge, yes.
Okay,
One of the
I
things,
already got a
though,
phone call.
in
I
order
just
for,
seen it on Facebook.
in order for that system to work, people's phone numbers have to be updated. So when you guys adopted the Code Red system,
Sure.
and to put it into place, part of that was the advertisings that went out with the utility bills, with our newsletters, with everyone who was calling into the utility and asking them to sign up for the Code Red system, through the clerk's office, asking them to update their contact
I think a
information.
couple small signs for the neighborhoods to get affected, whether it be a Utopia, the west side utility, and/or the east side would be advantageous, so thanks, Chuck.
And if there was like an action plan in case there was an actual boil, mandatory
Yeah.
boiling, if there was bacteria or something, obviously, okay, well, you didn't get the phone call, if you didn't know, well,
Sure.
you know, something needs to be done, like I said, Luke didn't know nothing about it.
Can you work on
We
that?
are looking at that internally as, for additional
Other process.
communications in our process.
Thank you.
And then
Awesome.
one other thing.
Yes.
My original house at 7513 West 136th Place, or 7513 West 136th Avenue in the Horseshoe.
Mm-hmm.
Been flooding since, bought the house since '92. It's not getting any better. They put drains in the back, they widened the drains a little bit more. Still hasn't helped. Still get flooded pretty bad. Now, I know Stave, he's put a lot of money in, building up the north side of the infrastructure of the road,
Mhm.
of 136th Avenue. Well, the town did 136th Place, they only did half the Horseshoe. They stopped, they said they ran out of money. And then 5 years later, maybe, I'm not sure, they did from Ninth Street all the way north to the lake.
Mm-hmm.
After Dave does everything, is there any way, is the town gonna finish 136th Avenue to alleviate some of that flooding? Because Mr. Carey put a lot of money in that infrastructure.
You bet.
You know, there's a way to tie in, because a lot of the way it's sloped right now, most of the water's on the south side, runs on the south side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
So he's putting all his money in the north side. South side is just, you know, put on this lot of it. And then there's 2 catch basins in the whole subdivision on that road. One across the street from my house, one in.
Have we ever put storm drains on that road or no?
They put the one next to my driveway.
Okay.
That ties into the clay tile that runs underneath my house. On a
Lovely.
clay tile.
Wow.
And then when it goes underneath my house, it goes to the back of the house where another storm catch basin is. It goes a little bit, goes east, one up the top of the hill, comes down west, and it wides.
Mhm.
Well, I'm the lowest spot. So if you get all this water right here and the water off 136th Place, guess where it goes? Backs up right in the crawl space.
Mm.
His house, the house in question was built by a former council member in a place where a house shouldn't have been built. Speaking of 2 sets of rules for the history of people getting by with things that normally,
Previous town manager told me I shouldn't have built my house on a retention pond. I'm like, I'm not the one that built the house.
I hate to ask a dumb question, Chuck. Is it been brought up to the Stormwater Board in the past?
I've
Multiple
brought it up
times?
Multiple times, years ago.
Jill, can you rehash this subject parcel?
And they did do some
Yes,
stuff
Tim.
down in there.
Yes, back in 2008. Yes.
We are currently reviewing some bidding, some proposals for exactly what he's talking about, finishing that last street in there and the rest of Cedar Street, so.
Okay.
We actually have, I was talking to Jill and Jen about it today, ironically, but we do have some pricing and we're reviewing those to see if we can pull that off to get that last. It's like he said, it's been done to the north, it's been done to the south, and that's kind of like the last little piece right there.
Got it.
We have.
It's on the radar.
We actually have the proposed, or the pricing back down to quantities and, drainage and so on and so forth. So depending on which option, dollars and cents, we're just starting to look at it, so.
You got it.
They can catch a lot of that on the south side of the road and kick it over where.
Yeah, that makes
Gates
sense.
is. That'll alleviate a lot of the river that runs down the road.
You bet. Yeah, I just don't know that we can use somebody's new subdivision's retention for existing storm. I would think not. But I'm sure Tim's aware of what he needs to do. So, thanks, Chuck. Okay, anybody else? Mr. Caper, good evening.
Charlie Caper, 8602 Lakeshore Drive. Actually, this is about the roundabout, but I've had a conversation with Jill, and thank you for renewing the signs. I mean, it will definitely help people. We are having constant people calling us saying they can't find our building. We probably get 2 or 3 phone calls a day. Our walk-in traffic is down. We're counting everybody that comes in, or some days as low as 2. Our high number has been 4 in the last week and a half. So, anything you can do for signage, we would definitely appreciate it. And the signage you have now, they are down on workhorses that say all businesses are open. Well, as soon as the car gets in front of that sign, you can't even see that sign, so.
Jill, could you have a sign company put the names of the businesses and with lettering? We would only need a couple of them.
Yeah, that's one of the things I discussed with Charlie.
Oh, okay.
As a matter of fact, yesterday, and I brought it up at RDC, was putting up some signage of the local businesses that are open, and there is access, and something a little bit more that people can read when they drive.
Okay.
They don't know which way to come in.
Well, we don't have that many businesses, so if we put the names of those organizations,
Right.
especially, the privates at least, it would go a long way. Thank you. Good suggestion.
Charlie, while you're up, would you tell me what you told me about the telephone line?
Amber and Diane can vouch. Some gentleman came in, he came in from Shane's side of the boat behind, and he came to pull around, and I said, we'd appreciate it if you'd come in from the east side. And he says, well, I'm here from looking for a phone line. He says, we're going to tear up the road that's coming right off of Pine Avenue. And he says there's a telephone cable that runs from there all the way through the lake to the other side.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
It comes out by my house.
True story?
Yeah.
So.
Charlie, it comes out by my house.
Oh, well,
Yep.
he was just down there doing something with wire. That'll be the next.
Wow. There you go.
AT&T, we got somebody requesting a permit to remove that line.
Right when you think you've heard it all.
1973, he did.
I looked at it 3 times.
That's about that big.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
Okay, very good. Well, with not seeing anyone else standing up for public comment, I think we're going to adjourn this meeting. So, at this time, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We do have a utility board meeting.
And that will begin in 5 minutes.
Let me see what I got here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sue, you're on Eastern Time, aren't you? It's 10:30 for you, Sue.
Sue's staying at your house.
Nice to see you. How are you, sir? No, Randy Niemeyer is.
Yeah. That's what I've been told.
Per our conversation on Saturday, I wish to be placed on the agenda.
You will be on it.
Thank you, sir.
No, I do not.
No doubt. I didn't forget about you.
What is
You
this?
gotta help me.
Josh?
How you doing? Yeah.
It's okay. We all know each other. We're like
I
family.
reached out to somebody.
How you doing, Jeff?
I think it would be huge.